Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I went and I pulled out the two Melody Beatty books, and I have to tell you, I didn't read the meditations, but I just looked at the titles, and I was like, both of these titles look so good. So, I actually think I'm going to start with the Journey to the Heart first today, and if I get through this, then I will go to the language of letting go. So, let's start with this one. And the meditation for today, March 15th, is called Learn to Say Goodbye. Sometimes we need to say goodbye. Some goodbyes come suddenly, without warning. Others are anticipated. Sometimes they're a relief, and sometimes they hurt deeply. We say goodbye to things, people, and places. We say goodbye to beliefs and behaviors that become outdated. Occasionally along the journey, we need to say goodbye to something else too, our dreams. Dreams are precious. They become embedded in our minds and in our hearts. When they die, it can be painful to let them go. But if we are not careful, dead dreams we haven't released can sabotage our lives and hearts. We will continue to try to place people and things in the vacant roles in our dreams. Our dead dreams will, in fact, be controlling our lives and blocking our hearts. Living with dreams that are dead closes the door to finding new visions and creating new dreams. If you can't see today or tomorrow clearly because of yesterday's dreams, it may be time for a funeral. Tenderly take your dearest dreams, your highest hopes and aims, the ones from yesterday that are now never to be, and place them gently in the ground. Tell them how dear they were and are, but tell them also it's time to say goodbye. Cover them up, dry your eyes, and open yourself to the new hopes and dreams of today. It's an interesting meditation. You know, I usually, when I'm done reading a meditation, I say, oh my God, I love this meditation. It was so fantastic. I know, it's kind of a sad meditation, isn't it? You know, when it started, I was thinking about saying goodbye to people. And I think there in life, many different ways that we say goodbye to people. And I have said goodbye to people in many different ways. And I think, you know, obviously when people pass away, that's one of the ways that we say goodbye to people. I think the other way that has been hard in my life is when people move. I think one of the things I didn't expect in my life that gradually just kind of happens over time is that you just grow apart from people, you know, and that friendships that you once had no longer seem to be. And, you know, I have so many people that I used to be really close with and I used to be really bonded with, where I talk to them daily and, you know, our lives were so enmeshed. And I'm not talking about, you know, I've had many people in my life that have gone back out. I always get asked when I say that, what I mean by that. And what I mean by going back out is that they went back to using again. And, you know, it's a difficult relationship to keep. I'm not going to say that I don't have some friends of mine that I met through recovery that I'm still in contact with today, because I do have friends of mine that are actively using on some level and, you know, mildly successful at drinking or whatever, but I don't see them being super successful. But they don't attend 12-step meetings and they're not in recovery today, and they've decided that that's not the life that they want. The problem is with that is that it's hard because you speak a different language, you know, and you shared a common experience. It's kind of like the sinking ship theory, you know, it's kind of like when you go down together in the situation, you know, it's like you've experienced this life thing. And so when people go back out and they start using again, it's like, and I think the common understanding or that people think is that it's the people in recovery that always kind of like say, okay, I'm not going to talk to this person anymore, which that is absolutely not the case whatsoever. It's typically the person that goes back and starts using again that, you know, you'll call and you'll try to get in contact with and check in, and they just stop contacting you and they stop texting and calling and you stop hearing from them over time. And those have been some friendships that I have had to say goodbye to over time. I think the hardest friendships for me to say goodbye to were the ones that were no longer healthy for me. And, you know, I'm somebody like, you know, I give people 15 chances, you know, and I have a part in that too, you know, and there are things that I need to work on and change in relationships. And I remember years and years and years ago, I was like, probably my first couple years sober, and I was watching an Oprah, and she was talking about, it was like, they were talking about saying goodbye to people, like this meditation, and that it's okay to say goodbye to friends that have kind of like worn out their welcome, or that the friendship is not serving a purpose in your life anymore, right? And that it was at that point that they were talking about friends coming in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I've always remembered that, and I've always believed that. And there's another friend of mine that she says it a lot, and I believe that, you know, that people come in your life to teach you something, or for a certain part of your life, or they're lifetime friends. And I was actually just talking about this at my meeting last night, you know. In my life, I have very few lifetime friends. I have my best friend, Tanya Jean. And then I have, she didn't even come into the picture until I had been several years sober, you know. And then I have a few friends, like my mom's best friend, that I've known my entire life. Other than that, I don't really have any lifetime friends anymore, you know. I hope that the friends that I have in my life today are friends that I have for the rest of my life. But, you know, that can change. I don't know. I think one of the things, the hardest I was going to say earlier, that's happened over time, is where I've realized that the relationship, it's become toxic, or it's not healthy for me to have this friendship in my life anymore. And then what happens over time is I have to lower my expectations for people in my life. Lower them, you know? And I can remember talking to my best friend one time, and I said, we were talking about somebody, and I said, I don't know how much lower I'm supposed to lower my expectations. And she said, until you don't have them anymore. Well, I think it's really hard to not have expectations for people. And in fact, she and I were talking about this last night. I think it's fair to have expectations for people in our lives. And I think it's fair for people to have expectations for me too. I think it's fair for my friends to expect that I'm going to be loyal and I'm going to stand up for them. I think it's fair for my friends to expect that I'm going to be there for them in times of need. You know, I think there's a lot that we can expect from our friends and people that are close to us. And in my life, when I have experienced that, I know maybe people are like, oh, Peter's being a hard ass about this. I feel that there was a long period of my life, like maybe 10 or 15 years, where I felt very much like a doormat. Like I allowed people to walk over me. And I remember I had a friend of mine, I was talking about a friendship that I had, and I said, I kind of feel like a doormat in this friendship. And she said, well, you have to lay down to get walked over. And I thought about that, and I thought, okay, there's some truth to that, you know? And I had another friend that we were talking about the same, different situation, and, you know, but I believe that to some degree. You know, the thing that's hard is, I think like when you look at that and you think about that, it's like, okay, so what's my part in that, you know? And that comment, that statement had come up in another way in reference to a friend of mine being in a relationship that was not healthy, where we talked about that as well, you know? And it's like, you know, for me though, with those friendships, I had to look at like, what's my part in this, you know? And why am I keeping this person in my life? And then what started to happen was I started to detach emotionally from them, right? And what's sad and what's scary about that is that when you start lowering your expectations and emotionally detaching from somebody, like people ask me all the time, like, Peter, you talk about setting boundaries and limits for people in your life, like family and whatever, right? When they're not healthy. But how do you do that when it's somebody you're forced to do, you know, have this bond with? Okay, well, first of all, when you start, you don't just remove that person tomorrow, right? Like, I would tell you to attempt to have conversations with them, honest conversations about how they're affecting your life, right? But when you start lowering your expectations for that person, okay? Like you say, okay, well, I don't expect this person to be loyal to me. I don't expect this person to be whatever, okay? What happens when you do that is that all of a sudden, this person that you held to some regard, this person that you respected, this person that meant something to you, this person that you wanted standing by your side, you don't really respect them as much anymore, you know? Because if you have to lower your expectations of them to the point where you can't respect them, they don't really mean that much to you anymore, you know? And then what happens is you start emotionally detaching from them, which means you don't really have this strong tie to them anymore. And I can remember with like one friendship that I had years and years and years ago, when I started doing that, I can remember, you know, it was all of a sudden, like, I hadn't talked about them in, like, months, and I would, like, talk about them before that, like, you know, years before that, and I would get very upset and very hurt by what this friendship had happened, and it seemed like it meant nothing to them, and blah, 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 whatever, right? And then I can remember I was having a conversation with one of my friends about this friendship, and my friend said, "You've changed, like, you don't seem upset about it at all," and I was like, I don't really have any emotional attachment to this person anymore. Like, I wish them the best, and I hope the best for them, but in all honesty, if I never saw them again in my life, I probably would be okay with that. And maybe that sounds cruel, I don't know, but, like, you know, I realized that they were a season friend for me. They came into my life for a season. We had great times together. You know, that doesn't take away from any of the times that we spent together, you know. But, and I think, like, and also in, like, looking at past, like, romantic relationships, it's always kind of how I've tried to be. Like, I don't want to be with that person anymore. I've learned a lot from that relationship. It was what it was. It ended for a specific reason. You know, I'm going to remember it fondly, but let's move on, like, you know, and take it. And it was a learning experience. You don't have to be, like, bitter to the end with it, you know. I don't want to go through life being angry and being bitter at past friendships, past relationships. I mean, work relationships even sometimes. You know, I don't want to go through life being like that with people. And, you know, and I think sometimes we expect other people to fulfill those things for us. I think the sad thing about the meditation was talking about letting go of your dreams. I think the sad thing for me is, you know, there's a scene in Thelma and Louise, if you've ever seen the movie, and it's when Susan Sarandon is asleep and Gina Davis is driving the car, and she's driving through the Badlands, and they play that song, and that says something about she realized she would never drive a convertible in France, you know? And I can remember when I heard that song for the very first time. I can't remember who sings that song. But anyway, super famous, a singer. Why can't I think of who it is? But anyway, I remember when I heard that song for the very first time, and I was like, you know, in my 20s, and I loved that movie. And actually, Alex and I were watching the Oscars the other night, and they flashed that on when they did, like, the Warner Brothers thing. And I said, oh, that's one of my favorite movies. And, you know, it's funny because I can remember when I saw that movie, and I, like, so related to that movie, you know? And now I'm, like, 50, and I even probably more relate to that movie. But I think the thing is that you realize, you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that some things that you wanted to do probably aren't going to happen. But this is where I disagree with Melody Beatty. I don't know that I would ever tell anybody to bury your dreams and have a funeral. I'm a believer because I have witnessed people in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s. I see people all the time come into recovery and get sober at 60, at 70, at 75, 80, right? And start their lives from that point on, you know? So I would never tell anybody. And I love Melody Beatty, you know I do. But I would never tell anybody to bury your dreams because you have to realize that they're not going to happen. I think there's a lot of things that we realize that, I mean, I'm probably never going to have a bestseller on the New York Times bestseller list. But what if I do? I probably will never be an actor in a major movie. You know, one of my dreams is to be this character actor in a major movie. But what if? What if I am accepting an Oscar one day, you know? What if I am in a rock band that tours around? I mean, who knows? You never know, you know? And one of the things that I always hope to be testament to the dreamer out there is that I can tell you that 7 years ago, okay, before I ever started a BookTube channel, and that started this whole thing out there, you know, I was talking to, who was I talking to? I think I was talking to Tanya last night, and she said something about, well, I already know that this was going to happen. I said, Tanya, I didn't know 7 years ago, you know, that I was going to even be on YouTube, let alone have 6 channels. And she's like, well, that's right. That's the way to look at it. You just don't know, you know. And I'm a big believer that when opportunity meets desire, amazing things happen. You never know what's going to happen. No, if you dream big, your dreams can come true. So no, I'm not a believer, and I have to disagree with Melody Beatty on that one. I'm not a believer in burying your dreams. You know, maybe what you need to do is dig your dreams up and put some water on them and make them grow a little bit higher, because we're the ones that are responsible for making our dreams grow. Anyway, that's what I thought about that meditation. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll save the language of letting go for another day, and I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.